All right. So, folks, first of all, welcome to our Facebook Live. I hope a lot of people had an opportunity to tune in yesterday, last night, as we were talking about some of the things I'm going to talk about today. I actually have 16 pages of questions and comments, but a lot of them are repetitive. And one of the main reasons why I asked Ms. Ward and Ms. Workman to put in there to discuss the reopening of schools, because I knew that the governor's announcement was coming out on Tuesday, and I didn't want a long period of time to go by before you all heard from me. So it's going to be important for you to understand how this process is going to work. So it's going to be our plan to release to you all at our July 9th school board meeting kind of our thought of how we're going to open schools. And I need to be honest and let you all know that unless we move to phase 3 and beyond, because we're in phase 2 right now in Suffolk, we will more than likely not start the school year with 100% of our students in the classroom. And so we're looking at logistics right now. And Dr. Suzanne Rice, our Chief of Administrative Services, is leading a task force that has administrators from the central office, administrators from buildings, teachers and parents on it, going over and discussing ideas. And we've kind of come up with some percentages that we're looking at. And I'm going to ask you all for your feedback the week of June 22nd through June 26th. And that will include, probably 2 or 3 different percentages, but it will also include a 100% virtual learning plan. And one of the things I am comfortable with sharing with you all today is whatever plan we come up with, we're going to look at 2 potential end dates. The first one, and a lot of this is going to depend on how quickly we move through the Commonwealth of Virginia with the CDC regulations. The first potential end date for whatever this percentage is that we kind of settle on would be October 2nd. So it basically would be 1 month of having percentages of our students in school. And one of the things that we also are working on is, okay, even if we have X percentage of students in school, our special education that are at level 2 have, some more severe disabilities, our English language learners, and maybe some other groups would come more often. That includes our pre-K through 2. And one of the things I do want to reinforce to you all, and I think you all heard me talk about this at our last Facebook Live, is our SPS Connect in the fall is division-wide. I'm talking pre-K through 12. And I don't know about a lot of school divisions that have pre-K having technology in their hands. And we want to make it age appropriate. So John Littlefield, the great director of technology that he is, he's looking at Chromebooks versus iPads and things of that nature. As I'm looking at some of these questions that you all have, is the school year still on track to start September 8th? Yes. Can you give us more specific information on how things will look for SPS? Well, the first thing that you can guarantee is that we're still going to have social distancing. And the key variable for us determining what percentage of students we can actually have in the building is how many kids we can get on the bus. The guidelines that came out from the document, I'm sure that you all have seen it or have heard about it, the Recover, Redesign, and Restart, is that we still must have social distancing on the bus as well. So that is 6 feet. Now, the only groups that can still sit together is if you have siblings, they can actually sit in the same seat. Well, we're really looking at 1 student every other seat on a bus. So the ratio that has been given to us by our transportation department is a traditional route that we have right now. 1 bus that we normally would use right now is going to equal 5 buses in the fall. So that's going to really drive the percentage. And we still also want to make sure that parents, you do have the option of taking your kids to school on whatever that designated day is going to be. You will probably have the option also of having 100% virtual learning. But the transportation forms that are coming out, they haven't already come out from the school division, are really important to get in. We need that transportation information. I see a question that's popping here about how many kids to a classroom. Is probably going to be 10. Because we've had Dr. Rice and Mr. Napier kind of go into our schools and taking a look at all the desk folks have to face the same way. The collaboration that we normally see for group work and things of that nature, we really can't have that. So the collaboration is now going to have to take place virtually. We've revised our lesson plans so that they are now called instructional innovation plans. And the instructional innovation plans, the teachers have to have a technology component in there. And we had a pilot presentation, a pilot with our iReady for K through 5. Thank you to our 2 teachers from Northern Shores, Lori White. They did a tremendous job last night. I wanted to make sure the board got firsthand knowledge of how the iReady program works, because we want to use that as our instructional online platform so that folks, we will get to the point that if we're ever out of school for extended closure, for snow or any other reason, we will already still continue to be able to teach and move throughout the school year online. And that's part of the reason why I'm having our teachers do professional learning this week on getting their Google Classroom and getting the certifications there, and also with equity training. Our secondary teachers did the Google Classroom certification starting in January because we try to give them some incentive to get it done by March 3rd. Now we're asking for our elementary folks to do it, or we're asking you to continue on and get level 2 certification. Question that we have here, will students receive COVID testing? No. Will there be daily temperature checks for students and staff? So we have purchased about 170 to 175 thermometers. And one of the things we're looking at logistically is how do we, if we need to, do we do temperature checks for each and every kid? One of the things I can share with you that we are going to require all of our staff members to wear a mask. And for staff that has pre-existing health conditions, then we're also going to try to make sure that those are going to probably be the ones that will lead our virtual instruction. I don't think it's realistic to expect all of our students to wear a mask, but we want to encourage it. But the key thing I'm going to need from the school community is parents, guardians, whomever. If your kid is not feeling well, do not send them to school. Remember, this is why we have this virtual piece there, and the teachers will be able to have that communication so we don't have to worry about that. Do not send them to school. And right now, it's looking like the Department of Education is going to be able to give us some flexibility on attendance so we won't have to worry about that 95% threshold. And I think it's going to end up being that the online, the virtual component is going to end up covering, the documentation we use will also end up covering that attendance requirement. Sometimes children get off the bus with fevers. Will they be allowed to enter school? Hopefully they won't get off the bus with fevers because our parents are going to be checking them out. Okay. What will be the policy if a kid gets a fever at school? So we're still going to use the same thing that we have done. We're working on figuring out if we have reduced amount of kids in the classroom, in the school, how can we potentially expand our clinic so that we can have social distancing there as well? If there's a case of COVID, will the teacher and the kids who might have been exposed be required to stay home for 15 days? Well, the first thing that has to happen is we're supposed to wait 24 hours before we start cleaning the classroom. And the Virginia Department of Health is coming up with some additional guidelines just to make sure that they know it's unrealistic for folks to have to stay at home 15 days unless there is a positive test in the classroom. And if that occurs, they're supposed to be able to give us some guidelines on how we're going to handle that. Potentially even having free testing being available for people that are going places to get that test. So I'm trying to figure out, as the more information comes out, Sarah Williford has been in touch with the medical professionals. I know that Dr. Lee had some conversations with OBC and Bond Secures. We are really taking the guidance from the state on that. And that's not going to be a division decision, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to be a Commonwealth of Virginia decision. Will classrooms be provided with hand sanitizer? Yes, and tissues. Typically, the brunt of this cost falls on educators. Not all the time. I think that's a general statement. Given the fact that people up to 19 are at minimal risk, hospitalization, this is very long. This person had concerns with the virtual SBS plan. What fact-based rationale can SBS give for now SBS to fully reopen September 2020? The fact-based is what the governor says. We can't have 100% of our students in school right now unless we move to phase 3 and beyond. Now, the guidance that we've seen from our biweekly superintendent meetings is telling us that we might be able to move to phase 3 in 4 to 8 weeks. But remember, this means that you need to have 14 consecutive days of a decrease in testing, as well as making sure that the hospital beds and things of that nature are available. With the hospital bed piece and the PPE equipment, that is definitely improved. But they also are still expecting a spike this summer because, the guidelines have been relaxed. You have more people now that can be in a space at 50. You have protests going on. A lot of people are actually, testing positive and thinking they may have got it from being in larger groups at church, protests, and other things. So we have to make sure that we are still staying within the realms of the guidelines from the state, the recommendations from the Virginia Department of Health. We're on top of that part. But I can't just tell you that this is going to be back to normal September 8th. And for this person to say that SBS continues to deny students a free and appropriate education, that's not true. That's not true at all. Given the fact that there is no vaccination, the fact that several states are experiencing a rise in cases, just what I was talking about, will the state provide homeschool alternatives for students? So this is why we're thinking that we're still going to have a virtual component to some of the choices that you all would get on June 22nd. And, we had some speakers last night at the board meeting that raised some concerns with Edgenuity, and we knew that there were some concerns with Edgenuity. And then one of the guys said he wished the questions would have been more specific. The way this works is when you do surveys, you don't personalize it with every specific example. You look for common themes, and those common themes help to drive decisions. The most common things that I've seen so far, and looking at the comments that we have on our school division websites, and also some emails that you all have sent to me, with Edgenuity, there was extended periods of time that it took for kids to get through the modules. There were audio issues on the video. Those were probably the top two. And the third one was lack of teacher support. And I just finished a meeting with our principals when I know I can control that third one, lack of teacher support. So that's going to be a focus of all of our building administrators. And that was part of the reason why we had documentation for office hours and for the teachers to be able to describe it and talk about who they, documenting who they were meeting with. Thank you all to some of you all that sent me some names as well as some emails of teachers actually informing you all, oh, well, since we're out of school, we're done. That's unprofessional. That's not the case. And each email that was shared with me, I shared directly with the principal, and that is being addressed. And when we do come back to the fall, I said this last night in my SBS response plan update, the hybrid learning plan, the fall learning plan that we're going to put into place will not look like the virtual SBS plan that we had this year, this fourth 9 weeks. It will not look like the mastery SBS plan with the packets. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to reiterate this again. We had 2.5 weeks to come up with a proposal to help our kids still learn. 80 school divisions in the Commonwealth of Virginia did nothing. And for us to think that, it was going to replace the traditional instructional model was just not realistic. Now, your feedback helped us to make some adjustments. I got an email or I saw a comment from a gentleman talking about that it was total garbage that we lowered the threshold from 80% to 70% completion, and that if a kid gets a 63, it didn't matter anyway. Tell that to the kid that was working that hard. Or tell that to some of my special education students that were working 2 and 3 hours additional just to keep up, and they were at 72 and 73% 2 days before the 9 weeks ended. But they were still mastering 90% of material. How can I punish a kid that was still mastering 90% of material because it takes them a little bit longer to process? One of the main things I want you all to have a takeaway from this Facebook Live today is instruction and school will never be the same. It will never be the same. And so we have to be able to adjust to understand that it's not going to look like it did last year. It's definitely not going to look like it did when we were in school. We are going to have different ways to meet these kids' needs because there is going to be some reteaching that's going to go on in the fall. And I can share with you that we will not have SOLs in the fall. It's being discussed right now if we're going to have SOLs in the spring or not. And the task force that was working with the Department of Education recommended that we do not have SOLs in the spring. And I can tell you all that the overall focus from the state guidance and what Suffolk Public Schools already had in place was a focus on the social emotional learning of our students and our staff, because we do not know how this pandemic and our current civil unrest has affected students and families. So let's focus in on making sure that our kids feel loved, welcome, and supported whenever they come back to school, whatever that model looks like. That's going to be our goal. Do we have any idea the duration of the mandates from the governor have to stay in place? Probably phase 2 is going to be 4 to 8 more weeks from what I was told this week. But again, that can change. What about the parents that are not ready to send their kids back due to COVID concerns? That is a legitimate concern. That is a legitimate concern. That's why, we're going to kind of keep this virtual component in there. But the state has given us Canvas as a learning management system that is fantastic. And for those of you out there that are taking college courses with Canvas, please chime in and let them know. Canvas is great. You can see all of your assignments, learning modules, communication with the teacher. We're putting teams together to kind of help build that. And what's so great is that Canvas works with iReady, Edgenuity, and Google Classroom already. So John Littlefield is kind of leading that, Christine Lafferty, Lisa Myers, Maria Davenport. I mean, we have so many people that are involved in putting this together. And this is going to take us the whole summer, because the feedback that you all give us from the survey that's out right now, and the survey that's coming out June 22nd, along with the task force work that's being led by Dr. Rice and Terry Napier, John Littlefield, Pam Connor, I mean, the list goes on and on. All that information is going to help us to shape our plan. But I'm going to tell you this, before I make this public on July 9th of what we're thinking, I'm going to talk to your kids too. We're going to pick some kids and we're going to run the ideas by them, because kids have a different lens. And this is something that I have to get everybody to understand. Stop looking at this through your lens as an adult. Look at this through our kids' lens. They're the ones that are in the school, okay? We got to make sure that our kids are comfortable with this, because think about it. Our kids had their school years shortened by 3 months. Our seniors couldn't graduate in the traditional format, right? And then we have civil unrest going on too. The overall goal is to make sure that our kids are feeling safe. They're feeling love. They're feeling compassion. And that we're checking on them. Because even when we come back, if it's not 100%, there's going to be another adjustment there. What about those kids who have parents, both considered essential, have already exhausted time off and can't afford to stay home? Great question. Okay, so yesterday we announced that Alphabet is our new childcare provider. Anthony Hines is also working on an MOU with some of our local providers, because if we have to go to this hybrid model where not all of our students are in school at one time, we're looking at trying to make sure we have childcare for the off days for the students. And that's going to be open up to SBS staff first, then some of our disenfranchised populations, then parents, so that we will have a wing of the school following the exact same social distancing guidelines so that our people can go to work, so the essential staff can go to work. As we begin to open up and get back to normal, we knew that childcare was going to be a big issue. So in our plan, we're addressing that too. How can the elementary schools comply with these ridiculous mandates and successfully foster growth, learning, and security in our learners, especially in a Title I school? Okay, so the definition of a Title I school, sometimes people give a negative connotation, and that's what this statement right here says. A Title I school is a school that gets additional federal funds, but it doesn't mean that our kids don't have the ability to be able to address and adjust. Kids are a lot more resilient sometimes and a lot more flexible than adults. We're going to do everything that we can to make sure that the social, emotional, and that social part is still there. I've had some conversation with our folks about what PE classes look like, how we're going to do lunch. Information has now come out from the National Federation of High Schools and the VHSL saying that we can begin to open back up, workouts. But I need to let you all know this, okay? We can't do any workouts until we submit a health plan. Each school division in the Commonwealth of Virginia has to submit 2 plans to the state. The health plan, I'm going to talk about that one first because that's the most important. That describes the social distancing. That describes how we're going to make sure that we're going to keep our folks safe. That is also going to describe what we need to do if someone gets sick. It describes our disinfecting methods, right? Then we have to submit the instructional plan. And the key component to the instructional plan is going to, how you divide the students up. But it's also, what are you going to do to address the learning loss? Folks, we got to remember, in a lot of school divisions in the state, 6 months of learning loss. 6 months, okay? And doing whatever we can to get these kids back on track, to get them comfortable, okay? That's going to be really important. And spiraling the information, I think it's really important that I saw a comment come across here, what training are we going to have for parents? Yeah, that's important because we got to make sure that you all are comfortable with what we're doing, that you're comfortable with the programs that we're using and so forth. But we also have to make sure that we're taking in consideration that, kids adjust to things differently and we don't know what's going on at home. Can we assess students at the beginning of the year and place them in virtual classes that meet them where they are? We kind of talked about that. I think the only challenge is making sure that people understand that we need to give less assessments next year because we have to give more people an opportunity, our students more opportunities to kind of catch back up. So we're kind of looking at every 3 weeks, looking at maybe a major assessment, having some quizzes, having some tests, and looking at tests in different ways. It could be some projects that could actually occur outside of school. Teacher asks, it's been recommended to open doors and windows when possible for outside air exchange, except my classroom mobile unit doors are supposed to always be locked. What will be the focus? If we have a reduced enrollment, we may not have to use some of those mobiles. But when we get back to normal, we do have some schools that are overcrowded, so that part will go back to normal. How are you going to make sure the classrooms and bathrooms are clean at all times? So the plan is that we bought some sanitizers, some air sanitizers and air machines so that really on the days or if we have to move classes around, we're going to have our custodial crews go in. It's going to take them about 90 minutes. 90 minutes to take care of a wing, to take care of a classroom. So this is part of the reason why when students are coming in, if we are on some type of division, this is part of the reason why we're going to have probably different wings of the building being used. How often will they be allowed to wash their hands and sanitize? We are going to have more hand sanitizer in our schools. We're also purchasing electronic dryers. We're trying to keep our bathrooms a lot cleaner. Our teachers are expected to enforce the guidelines on their own, cleaning, spacing, etc. So the spacing is already going to be set up. The guidelines are going to be division-wide. I don't want to put teachers into the line of fire of having to do this on their own every day. My daughter's starting her first year of middle school and she's already nervous. How different will things be? To me, that's a great statement right there. It's going to be different. It's going to be different. They're actually predicting, based on NWA map for those schools that use that, they're actually predicting that the group that's from 5th grade to 6th grade is the one they're most concerned about with learning loss. And we've already had some conversations with our middle school leaders about addressing that. Will additional medical information or forms be required to identify personnel who may have been contacted or exposed to COVID-19? So we can't really share all of that because of the family, basically employee privacy, but we will have to share it if it's the teacher or somebody like that in the classroom. That's one of the things that the task force is looking at for that documentation. Will teachers be allowed to bring personal PPE such as touchless thermometers, face shields, masks? So the masks are going to be required, but the school is going to go ahead and provide the thermometers. Can we have PD on classroom management and social distancing? So to be honest, I think the classroom management should be easier because you have less students. The social distancing part, we're going to definitely release some guidelines with that as part of our return to school plan. Will you have exceptions for students who come from homes with others who are, there's other people in the home that have been compromised or high risk? That's a good point too. And I think that's when we need to have some of those individual conversations with those families. If a student is coming to school, but if someone is at a home that has a pre-existing medical condition, that's probably when we're going to have some virtual learning going on there. Has there been a poll created for parents to complete if they would rather have virtual learning for health reasons or family issues with COVID? I wouldn't really call it a poll, but that's going to be the survey that is coming out June 22nd. What if your child cannot use hand sanitizer? Are they going to let her go to the bathroom to wash her hands? Yes. Will Suffolk Public Schools be giving out EBT cards for all students for food, just like Newport News in Yorktown? So that's already in. Those should have been mailed. And I know that we had some addresses that were wrong that came back to the SAO, but that's already has been taken care of. Will school be virtual in September when it starts? Probably some component of it. Yes, probably some component of it. Will distance learning education be offered to students? Yes. Will my child be penalized? This is a good question right here. Will my child be penalized if I feel it's not safe for them to attend school in the fall, but we would still do proper and make sure it's turned in? So, we're going to give you all some options there. Again, that's where that documentation is going to be really important from our teachers. And as we look at those students that are actually getting the instruction online, some of these questions that you all are asking, I can't answer just yet because our plan is not finalized. What are you doing to ensure that students will be learning in the fall if there's any use of technology-based learning? So all of our kids are going to have an instructional device, and the first thing that we're going to do in the month of September is go over how to use that device. That's probably going to really happen during the first week or two, and really kind of introduce them to the programs that we're going to use, get them familiar with Canvas, get them familiar with iReady, get them familiar with Edgenuity. If alternative formats are used, how will you ensure that students have a routine which is vital for the development? Great question, because kids need that structure. And getting that routine is going to be there. As we divide this up, some of our specialists in the school administrative office are going to work with our principals in developing the master schedule and kind of dividing up some sections and getting kids used to it so that whatever this hybrid learning model looks like, it's going to be the same for a couple of weeks. Will virtual learning students have the opportunity to have school pictures taken and be included in the yearbook? Yes. Okay, this is related to special education. Can you please tell us if you require all students to wear a mask when they go back to school in the building? So I can't really require it, but I can strongly encourage it. I can require that staff wears masks. Regarding masks and social distancing requirements in relation to our students with intellectual disabilities, what is your expectation for these students to abide by these requirements? How do you anticipate enforcing these requirements for this segment of the student population? So I think the word enforce is a strong word there, but I can share with you that whatever plan we come up with, again, our students with disabilities, intellectual disabilities, they will be in school more than some of our other students. And a lot of that's because of the routine. A lot of that is just because they were, matching the needs of their IEP. And our staff, Stephanie Whitley has already begun to have some conversations with our students and our teachers and our specialists on prepping our families and prepping the students for it. This is talking about acknowledging that Suffolk is already in phase 2 and that our special education students have not received services such as speech, OT, PT, and vision. Would you consider bringing our SPED population back into the school buildings first so that they can begin to receive the services they need as soon as possible? So I'm not looking to bring anybody back before September 8th. But you bring up a good point here about really increasing the frequency of these services to make up for the time missed while school was closed. That's something that's legitimate and it definitely needs to be talked about. This is mentioning how our special education students were one of the groups that have not benefited from online instruction. They are also a group that could potentially have the greatest number of medically fragile students. The Suffolk Public Schools currently have the resources that it needs to provide homebound instruction to all medically fragile SPED students. So we do have homebound teachers, but we also want to make sure that when looking at the IEPs, that our parents have some good input and kind of collaborate with our team on doing that. The medically fragile, that's the group that I'm worried about. And that includes for staff too. I mean, I think you all have heard me say this before, that keeping our students and staff safe is our first priority. And instructing them is second. So we need to make sure that we're going to be creative and have some conversations. And one of the things I do want to share with the group here is we know there's not going to be a one-size model that fits all. In relation to question 5, will students be required to provide documentation from a physician stating that they fall into a high-risk category? Yes, we're going to need some medical information online. If you are leaning toward a mask requirement, will you research the health consequences of long-term mask use in children? So again, I don't really see us making it mandatory that students wear masks. I'm not going to make that a part of resources for school. All right, for social distancing, because Ms. Workman and Ms. Ward have put this into groups for us. How are teachers and students going to social distance in the classroom? So again, we're probably looking at right around 10 kids in a class right now. Some classrooms might be a little bit bigger. And all the desks have to face the same way. All of the desks have to be 6 feet apart. And the teacher will be wearing a mask. Now, if the teacher's at the front of the classroom and the students are, 7 to 8 feet away, technically the teacher could take off the mask. But when they're going to work with them for one-on-one instruction and things of that nature, we definitely want to be able to have that on. What are your plans to social distance the pre-K and kindergarten classrooms? Will there be less students, more teachers? So depending on whatever the percentage is, one of the things that we've been talking about as a group is, we're going to expect our staff to be there each and every day, which ideally could mean that we could have multiple teachers in every classroom. And if we do that, this will really benefit the kids, because this means that they can actually get more individualized instruction and attention. And that also includes instructional assistance as well. So I've already answered that one. For transportation, what's the plan for buses? So right now, the guidelines that we have, ladies and gentlemen, just to reiterate, 1 student every other seat. 5 buses it will more than likely take to complete one traditional route like we did this year. Only people that can sit together on the buses if they're siblings coming from the same house. Will early drop-off be an option to keep buses from being overcrowded? I wouldn't say early drop-off, but I will always encourage parents to bring their kids to school if they can. And that's where that transportation form is going to be really important. How are you going to determine which children ride the bus? If we have to break them up by percentages, we're looking at having buses going to, certain sections of the city. And a lot of it's also going to depend on the master schedule when we assign that. Will buses have to make multiple runs for each route to allow for social distancing? I hope not. One of the things we also have to keep in consideration is the total number of bus drivers that may also have medical issues. And this is what this question is talking about. What about the drivers that have health issues and can't breathe with a mask on their faces? That's where that pre-existing medical stuff is going to come into play. How often will the classrooms be clean? Every day. And again, depending on what percentage, we are expecting to use only certain wings of the building, so they're designated wings for certain days. How will lunchtime operations change? That's something we're also looking at. Eating in the classroom, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be an option. I think that's going to be the best way to keep our kids safe. And at the secondary level and at the elementary level, if we're not eating in the classroom, then we got to count how many lunch shifts do we have, plus disinfecting in between each lunch shift. That's going to be a challenge for us, because I don't want to have it set up that a kid arrives at school at 9:30 and then they're eating lunch at 10. What would the classroom sizes be for K through third grade? Again, we're probably looking at 10. Will we be allowed to walk our kids back to the classrooms that first week to help the kids that have anxiety? That's a tough one. I'm gonna have to have some conversations with our elementary school principals about that, because you going back to the area also puts you and other students at risk as well. Will students be required to conduct end-of-the-day classroom cleaning with disinfecting wipes or some sort of cleaning solution? No, I'm not going to ask our kids to clean our classrooms, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so for scheduling, will schools open on time? Yes. Will school hours still be the same? Yes. Will the number of days in school be decreased? No. Will students be on a staggered schedule? Potentially, but staggered in this case will mean total number of kids that we have in class each day. Will they be attempting to keep siblings on the same schedule that are in different schools? Yes. That is one of the things that the task force is looking at. If not full-time, is the state, city, or anyone considering providing alternative education or supervised extracurricular activities to offset childcare expenses? So I've kind of talked about the childcare piece. I've been trying to have that childcare in non-used wings of the school. Extracurricular activities also have to, again, follow the VHSL health plan that we all have to submit to the Department of Education. And we have to, before any extracurricular activities can occur, let me talk about this for a quick second. Before any extracurricular activities can occur, that health plan needs to be submitted and it has to be approved. So that includes workouts, that includes band camps, things of that nature. And some just to make sure that our school community is aware. So the guidance says that for competitions or workouts, there needs to be 10 feet of social distancing. And if you're doing it inside, you can only have 30% of your group there. If you're doing it outside, you can have a maximum of 50% of your group. Even though the Virginia High School League said that we can start as early as Monday, the template plan just came out Wednesday. Actually, no, yesterday, Thursday. The template plan just came out Thursday. So we have to submit that, get approval back, and then once the approval is coming back, then we will let our directors of student activities and our coaches know they can begin to work out our kids. What are your plans for staff breaks if students have to stay in the same classroom all day? Again, that's why we're kind of leaning towards having multiple instructors in the class at one time. How is Suffolk planning on handling the amount of teachers who are not coming back next year? This, of course, is happening everywhere and not just Suffolk. So, as our contracts are coming in and June 30th comes up on us as the date where everything is finalized, I'll be able to answer that question more, but I can tell you that Dr. Brown's team has done a really good job of getting some new talent in Suffolk, especially in special education. We've hired 7 new special education teachers. Will all staff, cafeteria and bus included, be tested every day with temps in the morning and afternoons? So we're ordering the thermometers. We just haven't finalized yet if we're going to test everybody every day. All right, for masks, answer that question. Yes, we're going to ask for staff to wear masks. We're not going to make it mandatory for students to wear a mask, but it's going to be wrongly encouraged. Do you really think it is safe for children to walk around all day long with face coverings on, especially children with medical conditions? Again, folks, we just want to really follow the CDC guidelines on that. Will you allow mask exemptions for students and teachers with medical issues in a doctor's note? Students, yes. Teachers, those might be the ones that kind of help us to lead our virtual instruction. Let's go to the teaching section here, and we're going to be on for about another 5 or 6 minutes. The spring SPS students had minimal or no contact with the district's greatest assets, the teachers. No matter what next year look like, will you give the teachers and students the tools to learn together? Okay, so I want to address this one too, because this is some of the feedback that we've gotten from you all as constituents. And I'm assuming this person is talking about the online component. When we did Edgenuity, if you all remember, the expectation was that teachers also supplement instruction with Google Classroom. And what we've kind of found out is some of our folks didn't do that. After my last Facebook Live, as I mentioned, I actually sent an email to the entire school division based on some of the feedback I gotten from you all, how unfortunately some of our teachers weren't doing that. So we are expecting our teachers to be thoroughly involved in what our fall learning plan is going to look like, and to set up resources, to work in Canvas, to use their Google certifications for Google Classroom. That's something that is going to be mandatory for all staff. Let teachers teach and monitor teachers so that the ones that drop the ball can be redirected in professional development. There were many great pockets of teaching in Northern Shores, but there were many teachers that were radio silent. Kind of goes to my point. Will the SPS teacher presence be increased overall? While they may have had office hours, some teachers made little or no contact. I hope we have some of our educators on here that are hearing this. This is the feedback that we're getting from our families. I felt this spring you made a few copies for the elementary students and wash your hands. One of our teachers actually wrote a message saying the past few months felt like an extended spring break. Wow. Is there funding available to help with accredited homeschooling options? We don't pay for homeschool. How is going to work for rising kindergartens? We look at the foundational skills that they need. Yeah, and that's an important question right there too, because we want to make sure that we get our new students to Suffolk, and that's at all levels, off to a good start. Will field trips be allowed in the 2021 school year? Yes, after we get to phase 3 and beyond. Would SBS give credit to high school courses taken online from another accredited online platform? Yes, Virtual Virginia, we had a lot of students doing that. Will students be required to take the WISE exam for economics and personal finance? Most exams have been waived, even for economics and personal finance. Will makeup exams be administered for those not able to take the test in May 2020? No. I'm not going to put our kids through testing of information they should have learned this spring and the fall. That's not fair to them. Will there be an opportunity for students to have an additional optional year of high school? No. Will there be an option for students to finish early if classes are online again? If you've gotten your credits done, yes, that could happen. Is there another option besides Edgenuity? Again, I think I stated this in the beginning, but I'll state it again because I'm seeing some questions about that here. The plan that we use for the virtual SPS model will not be the plan that we use in the fall. We're going to have Canvas as the basis for our learning management system, which is going to tie together iReady for our K through 5 and Google Classroom, and Edgenuity for 6 through 12. We also have a Virtual Virginia option to be used for 6 through 12 as well for high school credit courses. But the feedback that you all have given us about Edgenuity, one of the things I said in the beginning is we heard you loud and clear. We made some adjustments. The feedback on the low sound on the videos, also making sure that our core subject area supervisors really scroll through and take a look at how long it's really taking our kids to complete the modules. I'm confused why elementary level had Zoom classes for real teaching and learning, but middle school and high school was thrown to Edgenuity. Okay, so at the elementary level, we did not mandate Zoom classes. And the main reason we couldn't mandate any online platforms is because, ladies and gentlemen, we didn't have Chromebooks or iPads for our elementary kids. So the Zoom classes that you participated in were part of the teacher's own creation, and we definitely applauded that. But as you know, not all of our kids were able to participate in that because they didn't have technology at home. Is teacher input going to be allowed for future virtual sessions? One of my kids was repeating math lessons from early in the year, and the virtual course did not pick up where the actual left off. The teachers really should have had input on that. And as we move, whatever hybrid plan we move into, folks, if you're not getting, good teacher feedback, I'm strongly encouraging you to let the building administrators know. I'm going to jump down to SOLs in the last couple of minutes here. How will SOLs be handled for 2020, 2021? I stated this earlier just in case people were missing it. There will not be any SOLs for the fall of 2020, 2021. The recommendation from the task force is to not have any SOLs at all next year. But that hasn't been finalized yet if that's going to happen. Will students be required to take an SOL test in May of 2021? Right now, yes, but that could change. Is SBS already planning to apply for a waiver? The only waiver that we were given was the waiver for this year that we had to do. And so all of the schools in Suffolk Public Schools, it will say accreditation waived on the school quality profile. I'm scrolling through, ladies and gentlemen, because some of these are repeating. How do I know if my kid passed? If it's at the elementary level, you would have had communication from the principal and the teacher by now, because we ended elementary grades after the third 9 weeks. How are the grades from the last half of this school year being looked at? Remember, we reduced the percentage for the third 9 weeks at the secondary level to 20%, and virtual SBS, the fourth 9 weeks, was 10%. Will there be summer school? Yes, summer school is July 6th through August 6th. It is free for SPS students. The information is already on the website. What happened to summer school being free? It is. I was told it was free, and then when my child would take 2 classes, now being told it's $375 a class. You must not be an SPS student or family. With a rising senior, will it be possible to enroll them into more than one summer school course in an effort to help alleviate some of the possible challenges? That's a tough one. With it only being July 6th through August 6th, 9 to 12, one class is going to be enough. What will recess look like? We plan to have the traditional recess if we have a reduced class size. But we're going to really have to work with the kids on playing and just running around and having fun on some of the different games. But it's going to be tough for the social distancing at the elementary level. I can admit that. Will they have band classes? Yes. Will there still be physical education classes? Yes. Are physical education and exploratory classes safe from being cut? We're not cutting any classes, ladies and gentlemen. How will the students in programs such as IB and the Prudence Center be managed? We're going to set those up the same way that we are setting up our general education classes. How will AP exams be administered for May 2021? That's going to be a college board decision. We haven't heard any information about that just yet. Have any plans been made in regarding to sports for the upcoming school year? So again, the Virginia High School League just released guidelines that allow for workouts to begin. Suffolk, it's probably going to take us a couple of weeks to get our health plan written and approved. Dr. Hahn, the executive director of Virginia High School League, he's probably going to be releasing some information in the next couple of weeks on what fall sports are going to look like. So we're going to have to stay tuned there. How will we be able to keep our high schoolers safe from intruders if everyone is wearing a mask? So I'm assuming that you're saying if someone is coming into the building here, and we're going to ask you to take your mask off and identify yourself in the camera before you actually come into the building. How will orientation work for us to meet the teachers? We're going to have a staggered schedule for that. Orientation is probably going to take a little bit longer this year. Since it sounds like we'll be hybrid learning, will all students be provided with Chromebooks, including elementary? Yes. Technology will be in the hands of all of our kids pre-K through 12. Why are teacher summative evaluation meetings being held after June 15th? That shouldn't be the case. You need to email Dr. Lee, Ms. Connor, and myself if that's an issue. What can be done this year to help with bullying in the schools? That's a focus for ours. I think it's been a focus for Suffolk Public Schools even before I got here. And I was looking at some of the climate perception data. That was something that came up. I need to have some conversations with some of our kids, because I need to understand what is being done to them, and are they reporting it to an adult and then the adult isn't doing anything? Because if they're reporting it to an adult and the adult isn't doing anything, that's a huge problem. What will you do for the youngest of our children in early start, kids transitioning from early intervention, early childhood special education? Those kids are going to be in school more often than others. Regarding John F. Kennedy Middle and Pioneer Elementary, we have yet to find out if our kids are moving on to the next grade, and if our 8th grade students haven't received a diploma. We don't give diplomas for 8th grade students, certificate or anything. If you haven't received any information saying that your child's being retained, they're not. Why is the meeting at 2 p.m. when people are working? It has to be based on a lot of people's schedules. I could make it later on in the afternoon, but then I would get the folks that have night shifts as well. And we looked at some data for the best time to have it. We thought about doing it during lunch, but we didn't want you to rush and not be able to participate then as well. Is the Google Level 1 certification required for all teachers? If so, what's the deadline for that? So ideally, we want you to have it done by Monday. But if not, we'll work with you to have it done sometime over the summer. Can we have a committee to look at parent-teacher conference days and how we can better serve the parents and students? We just changed that this last year based on feedback that we got. Will we have a school system-wide convocation this year? Oh, I really wanted to, but I don't think we're going to be able to do it because of what's going on. Can the kids start wearing uniforms? No. When are grades going to be uploaded to the Suffolk hack system? Teachers are having grades finalized today. If a vaccine becomes available, will it be required by all students? It's a good question. That won't be a school division decision, however. That'll be a state decision. Will there be a new grading scale for virtual learning? We're not really planning on it. Why did Suffolk choose Edgenuity over other programs that were used by Virginia Beach, Portsmouth, etc.? Edgenuity's been in the school district for several years, to what I understand. I don't know what programs they're using in Virginia Beach, but I also know that Virginia Beach did not do new instruction. Okay, so it is 2:52. I'm going to take about 2 or 3 more of these. How are you handling transfer students from out of state? Our buildings are open right now. We're going to our summer work schedule next week. Our buildings are open Monday through Thursday, ladies and gentlemen, 7:30 to 5:30 p.m. by appointment. New enrollees are incurring. Master schedule changes. People are picking up Chromebooks, Kajit devices, etc. What about CCAP certifications? My child took welding, but cannot get a certification this year. The state's working with us on that. We did recognize our CCAP folks last night at the school board meeting that did get welding. Will virtual Virginia fees be waived or paid by SBS? No, unfortunately, folks, we can't afford that. They did waive it for students that were taking classes during the 4th 9 weeks. Will Wi-Fi be provided? We have 500 Kajit devices that people have been signing out. Will behavioral support services be allowed in the school buildings? It is our plan to, but again, we have to make sure that we practice safety. What is going to happen with the high schoolers having to do community service? I'm probably going to waive that again like I did this year. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause it there. I'm going to remind you all, we will not have a Facebook Live July 10th, because that's the Friday after our school board meeting. I think I need to take some time to process some of the things that you all have asked me about. I'm sorry, and thank you to Jen Columbus for letting me know. I wish I could have got to all the questions that were coming in live, but again, folks, we had 16 pages, and I got through the majority of them, but some of them were repetitive. We're going to continue to work with you all. And I know I saw some things that came across here. I know some folks were mad when I said, we got to look at this through the student lens. We do. We do. I told you all when I first got here that we're going to always do everything to keep kids first. And talking to our kids about things is always going to be really important. And, parents are always going to have input, but I just want you all to know I'm going to ask your kids too. we got to talk to your kids too, because our kids got a lot to say. I mean, y'all know we got some dynamite kids here in Suffolk, and we got to give them that opportunity. And the conversations that I've had, the 3 students that we gave the superintendent scholarship with, the great biomedical video that's coming out soon. And I can tell you, your children are not shy. They communicate with me. They communicate with the staff. They communicate with their teachers and leaders in their building, because I want them to be leaders. So, again, whatever plan we come up with, the last group of people that we're going to talk to are going to be your children. And we got to think about them, because they're the ones that's actually living it. We're not in the classroom with them every day. They're the ones that are going through this. And, I also want to take the time to thank you all for all the support and all the love. It's been an interesting week, but, I'm glad that we can end the week on this high note. And even though everybody may not always, agree with everything the school division does, Suffolk Public Schools is a really good school division. Really good school division. But let's make it the best one. Let's really make it the best one. And the only way it's really going to work is if all of us are doing it together. All of us. And we're going to leave, one of the things I said last night, leave politics out of this. Leave it out. Let's keep these kids first. Let's pay our staff more. And let's celebrate all the great things that we have going on in Suffolk Public Schools. Thank you all so much. Have a great Friday, and make sure y'all enjoy this day.